So let's say you are running a media campaign or an advertising campaign or a social media campaign, basically any campaign. During the campaign, especially if it's social media, there are a lot of results we're going to have access to. When we look at the results, we need to choose particular metrics which works better with the objective we're trying to reach. So with all the data available, we need to filter through and find the most appropriate ones. And then we need to think to ourselves, if the performance of our social media marketing activity is not meeting our goal, then what adjustments can we make? And then think about making them. Once again, social media, right? So you've got YouTube, you've got Facebook, you've got Instagram, you've got TikTok, you've got Twitter. You have lots of different platforms to play with, and each of them have their own data analysis and metrics that you have access to. So if it's not going to plan, then quickly adjust, change, make the changes, implement the changes. With marketing in general, right? Anything that we do, it's about testing an idea, testing a hypothesis. I believe that everyone's going to want to buy this particular product. Cool. Let's create the product. Let's create the ad campaign to communicate with people. Let's look at the sales. Now, when we create the ad campaign and implement the ad campaign, we're testing our hypothesis. We thought people are going to love it, but are they loving it? If not, did we miss the market? Did we communicate the wrong segment? In which case, make adjustments. So here we also need to see, is the data accurate? We can compare with similar forms of engagement. So maybe there's a social media campaign we did earlier, or a marketing as in promotional campaign we did earlier. Let's compare the data. Right now, we're living in a really interesting time. Data that we get from today's world, if we compare it to 3 years ago, it's not going to be very comparable simply because we're going through the COVID stage still. In saying that, though, we can compare this year to last year, especially if the external situation hasn't changed too much. For example, last year, Melbourne or Australia in general, most of the cities came out of lockdown around the October, November period. So December was a relatively free, easy, free-flowing period from an economic and trade perspective. So we're comparing this year, November, December, to last year, November, December. It's comparable. So we can compare. And the other thing that we can also do when it comes to adjusting our engagement is we can broaden the sample size, meaning right now we're looking at this very small group of people, this small segment in the market, but it's not really working. So let's make it bigger. And from a data perspective, maybe we're looking at a very short period, the first 7 days of the campaign. Let's make that sample size bigger. Let's look at the first 2 weeks of the campaign, because sometimes it takes time for an idea to sink in.